Hey, have you ever heard about Jack the Ripper?
Jack the Ripper, the bad guy from like the 1990s film The Last Action Hero.
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of him.
Cool. No, not that one.
Oh.
Do you know who he's based off of? Who that film was based off of?
Some British killer.
Uh-huh.
That's about all I know about Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. And why is he important?
Is he important?
Yes, he's important.
Is he important because... I have no idea. Why is he important?
Because he's one of the first serial killers.
Oh, one of the first.
Yes.
I didn't know that, actually. Okay.
This week on MumbleCast, we're going to talk about serial killers.
Yes, well, we're going to maybe talk a little bit about your one, Jack the Ripper, if we have time. And less known one, but still a pretty brutal one, called Tommy Lynn Sells. The Coast to Coast Killer, apparently tagged as. We'll see how far we get.
All right.
Right, in that case,
let's
get ready to mumble! Alright, before we get into it, what is a serial killer? How do you... Because I was looking into this when we talked about... Well, first of all, we've not just chosen to do serial killers because we're weird. We have been asked by actually a number of people. I don't know why serial killers come up, but like 3 separate sources have asked us to do something about serial killers. So we thought, okay, let's adhere to the masses.
You guys are the weirdos, not us.
Yeah. So we'll do this now. There's so many serial killers out there. So many, unsurprisingly. But so we've chosen two to do today. That's a tough sentence.
Two to do today.
But yeah, what's a serial killer?
I didn't look this up, so I'm not really sure, but I'm gonna take a stab at it. Do they have to like commit more than one murder in a specific amount of time? And it be unsolved?
Yes to half of that, no to half of that.
Okay.
So they do have to commit a specific number of murders, but it also depends on who you ask, how many murders that is. It doesn't have to be over a specific period of time. Okay. Well, it does, but not... It can be as long as it wants. Okay. But it can't be short. I'll talk about it in a second. And what's the last thing? It can go solved. Okay. It doesn't have to be unsolved. Typically, it's a person who commits more than 3 murders with no motive, of little to no motive, and it is done over extended periods of time, so with a cool-off period. So that's why you can't have, like, if you go out and kill, like, 20 people in the same day with a machine gun, that's not a serial killer. Yeah. That's like a mass murder or a killing spree. Okay. Whereas if you kill someone, have a cooling-off period, or kill someone, have a cooling-off period, that's considered a serial killer. Okay. The FBI says a serial killer is a series of 2 or more murders committed as separate events, usually but not entirely performed alone. So that they give it 2 or more, so it could be.
And do they all have to have like a specific like ritual, or can it just be like...
They don't have to. A lot of them do tend to have some sort of reoccurring killing method. But MO, what does MO stand for?
Motive, maybe? I don't know.
No, MO stands for something else.
I don't know.
It's quite interesting because I didn't know this. Let's take that up real quick.
Modus operandus is what I'm going to say.
That sounds about right. Modus operandi, which is a Latin phrase approximately translates to the method of operation. Okay, so yeah, method of operation, same thing. Okay, there we go, cool. But no, they don't have to have the same method of operation. They can be varied entirely, as you'll see by at least my serial killer. What about yours? Cool. All right, so let's hear about the very first serial killer.
All right. I don't know if he was the very first. He was just one of the first. I mean, it was a really long time ago.
One of the first popular.
It's definitely probably the most popular.
And unsolved, as you mentioned.
Unsolved?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is unsolved. So yeah, he's an unidentified serial killer. He operated from 1888 to, I think, 1891, but so back up. He committed... There were 11 murders during 1888 and 1891 in Whitechapel, which is a district of London. And they don't know that all 11 were necessarily him because they weren't all... Like, 5 of them were kind of in the same type of, like, the rituals type thing. And the other 6 were like... They were the same type of victims, but they weren't killed in exactly the same way, so they're not exactly sure they're tied to him. Okay. So... They're called the canonical 5.
Canonical, okay.
And those were in 1888, and then the rest through 1891 they weren't sure about.
So 5 they're pretty confident. 6 that you're not sure about.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So Whitechapel was That's where all of this happened, and it was impoverished, and a lot of the women were drove to prostitution. And so all of the women that were killed were prostitutes.
Okay.
And he basically would cut their throats and, like, cut out all of their organs.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Were they alive? Would cut the throats before he does the organs?
They didn't say. I'm assuming they cut their throat and then, like, just took out all their organs.
Just continued on, and they probably died pretty quick after that.
Yeah. So because of that, like, the organs weren't, like, butchered, so they thought he had a surgical background.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Scotland Yard kept getting a lot of letters, and it would be people claiming to be the murderer, but they don't know. Like, they didn't know whether it was or not. They still have no idea who this person was. Yeah. So one of the letters was, they got the From Hell letter, and it had a preserved kidney in it.
From Hell letter, did you say?
Yeah, they called it, like, the From Hell letter.
It had a preserved kidney.
Oh,
one of the victims. Oh, they couldn't tell back then, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think they probably assumed it was.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. It had extensive news coverage and led to multiple legends because it's never solved. There are over 100 theories about his identity, though.
There's a lot of theories.
Yeah.
I think, you obviously do hear about Jack the Ripper through pop culture and other things. I didn't realise it was all just really through 1 year. Mm-hmm. You know, you often think serial killers takes 20 years to really get renowned, but just 1 year, 6 killings, all prostitutes. I guess at the time, so would have been frowned upon, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So the five of the 11 that are the main 5 are Marianne Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. And the Mary Kelly one was the last one, and she was the one that, like, I don't know, she's like the one people talk about. I don't know why.
Okay.
Maybe because she was the last. And then after that, there were 6 more that they can't tie to him exactly, but they're pretty sure those 5 were him. So then there are over 100 theories on who he is, but I found the 5 craziest ones.
Craziest, of course. Yes.
So there's a lot of different ones.
Does it say where he got the name Jack the Ripper? Like, I know the Ripper kind of. The Jack isn't my Jack. Just because it kind of.
Okay, so there were a lot of letters coming in, and like one of the letters that came in was just signed Jack the Ripper.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't the media made up. It was.
I don't think so.
Like
then a name picked up from a letter sent to the local newspapers of London. Huh. But, I mean, they still don't know that was actually him that sent the letter. It could have just been a random fan of his.
It's quite a good sort of claim to fame. I was the person who named Jack the Ripper.
Yeah.
If that was you. I'd totally tell my children about that. But I don't.
I pretended to be a serial killer. Signed my name Jack the Ripper. It stuck. Alright, so 5 craziest theories. The first one was this guy named Walter Sickert. He was a painter and made a lot of sketches and paintings of the Ripper killings, and they look. I mean, like, at that time you didn't have like 24/7 coverage of it, so people didn't know what it looked like, and he was like copying it pretty well, making the paintings pretty well to describe like what actually happened. So he was a suspect. He was implicated in the 1970s. So that was the weird thing about a lot of these.
What, 1970s?
Yeah.
Like 100 years later almost.
Yes. So people were still trying to figure this out.
Oh, so he wasn't... He was about in the 1880s?
Yes.
Okay, I thought...
Yeah. So all of these people were alive then, and people now are trying to
figure it out.
Them as the killers. So 1970s is when they tried to implicate him.
Wow.
In the 1990s, he became a suspect. Yeah.
What? Why even make him a suspect if he's dead?
I have no idea. Okay. That's like how all of these are.
Yeah, there's no way of proving any of it.
No,
you couldn't. Yeah,
and even if you did, like,
there's no way of getting full up proof unless you literally went to someone's house and there's photographs of them doing it or something. Anyway.
Yeah. So Patricia Cornwell, who is a author, wrote a book about him called "Portrait of a Killer: Jack the Ripper, Case Closed," and that's where he became the suspect. And she claimed to have found DNA evidence linking him to a Ripper letter.
Okay.
I'm not really sure how
to
that
Ripper
happened.
letter, but not to...
Yes.
The actual... Okay.
So, but once again, the letter could have came from anybody.
Yeah.
So that's the first one. The second one is a famous author. Do you know who this author is? Take a wild guess. An 1800s...
Remember you told me already.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to say who I said back then.
Okay.
I don't know. Roald Dahl, children's author. No.
It is Lewis Carroll, author
it's another
of
children's author.
Alice in Wonderland. Yes, a children's author. So he taught at Christ Church, which was in Whitechapel, until 1881. And the theory was published in 1996 by Richard Wallace. They just thought that he was a really weird dude. And he was in the area at the time, so they were just like, okay, surely this is it. And so then this guy that came up with this theory was like, he said that he, like, in his writings, like Alice in Wonderland, things like that, he wrote anagrams, like saying that, like, that the writing was actually an anagram of his confession. What? Yeah, it's really weird.
I'd be interested to see that deciphering of that, see those anagrams and things. But
apparently he, like, added letters and took them away and changed them a lot. So I don't really think that's how you work anagrams.
No, not at all.
No,
you can't take letters away in an anagram.
Yeah, he would just, like, leave out letters and change them to make them fit.
Sounds like dyslexic playing Scrabble. Yeah, it's not gonna work.
Yeah. So he was.
So that was 1990s.
1996.
And that was just some other author claimed he was.
Yes.
Because he was a bit of a suspicious dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they thought him and his colleague committed the murders together.
Well, to be fair, I think they do say that Alice in Wonderland, the book, is quite dark.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing like the Disney animation.
No.
It's maybe a bit weird, but okay.
Yeah.
Lewis Carroll. Good on him.
Number 3 was Jill the Ripper. So they think it could be a possible female killer. They have no idea who this female could have been, but they think it could be a midwife at the time. They also call her the Mad Midwife.
She have to be pretty brutal midwife to be able to overpower 5, potentially 11 women. Mm-hmm. Not saying she couldn't be that, but I'll take it by surprise. But why would a prostitute go near a midwife? It's like, no, I'm on the street, I'm trying to make money, leave me alone.
Unless she just sought them out.
Yeah, that's a good point. In the back alley somewhere, I guess.
Yeah. So this theory was actually a theory at the time by the main inspector of the case. His name was Inspector Aberline. And it was based off of testimonies of, I guess she was one of Mary Kelly's friends. Her name was Caroline Maxwell. Okay. She said that she saw, so like the night that Mary Kelly was killed, the next morning she said she saw Mary Kelly. So they're thinking maybe the killer just, like, dressed up in her clothes and, like, pretended to be her. Okay. Which technically a man could have done that, but at the time I guess they didn't think that, so it had to be a woman.
Wait a minute, so who said they saw?
I guess it was like a neighbor or like a friend or somebody.
Oh, I thought you said her friend. Okay. So
said that they saw Mary Kelly the next morning after she had been murdered the night before. Mm-hmm. So they're thinking that maybe somebody, like whoever killed her, just dressed up. But then it was also a good theory because they were looking for a man, a woman could have went unnoticed for at least 5 to 11 killings. Mm-hmm.
Or 120 years.
Yeah. And then if she's a midwife, then if she's covered in blood, she wouldn't be questioned because she's a midwife, and she would have had some medical background, so she would have known, like, how to cut people up.
That's probably about right.
Yeah. So that was one of, like, the better theories out there.
Yeah, it's not a crazy one. That seems legit.
Yeah. The next one was Lord Randolph Churchill, which is Winston Churchill's father.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It seems like it's, like, what, 2, maybe 3 of these people? No, 2 of them so far very famous. Mm-hmm. Seems a little bit...
A painter,
an author, and now Winston Churchill's dad. Right.
Really, I found that anybody who was kind of famous during that time was a suspect.
Of course.
Like, there's theories about everybody.
Yeah.
There's so many theories. So, yeah, they said that he was the highest Freemason in the land. So he gathered a group of 5 other people, and their plan was to murder 5 prostitutes led by Mary Kelly, who had knowledge that Prince Albert Victor had a secret marriage to Annie Elizabeth Crook.
Oh my god.
So all blackmail.
Yeah. I guess if you look at a lot of things like this, prostitutes aren't known to be able to blackmail high up people, and the stonemasons were apparently a thing. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's better than a painter who painted it, or Lewis Carroll, who's probably on LSD somewhere writing books. So
yeah. So The thing with this one was there was no evidence to support he was a Freemason. So, there's zero evidence there. There was no evidence of this marriage, this secret marriage. But if it was
of
secret,
there would be, yeah.
The only thing that was, a curious thing was that he did match a detailed description of a man seen with Mary Kelly before she was murdered.
Oh, okay.
But, I mean, also a lot of people...
What did it look like?
I think that they just described, the clothes he was wearing. But I'm sure
again,
a lot of people wore the same types of things.
Variety, I don't think,
Like a big top hat with a jacket.
A white man who's probably got round-faced glasses. And
yeah.
That was about it.
Yeah. So that one didn't have very much credibility either. And then the last one was James Maybrick, and he is voted number 1 suspect in Jack the Ripper casebook. They have shots of his diary that say that he is Jack the Ripper, but they think it's a hoax. They think that he just forged it all.
Yeah.
And he retracted and restated. Oh, so Michael Barrett claimed he discovered the diary, but they think that diary is a forgery. So
okay.
Then he
was this back in the 1800s?
No, this is I think now.
Oh, so he
he's found that he said that he's found this diary, but they think that he might have forged it.
Yeah. Okay.
So this guy he moved to from Liverpool to London, got malaria, was addicted to arsenic, then got married and had 2 kids, and then died in May of 1889, and his wife is accused of his murder. So really tough time.
Uh-huh.
And then this guy comes in years late, 100 years later, and claims he discovered this diary that makes this guy a murderer.
Why would he connect this guy to it? Was he connected at the time? No.
Mm-mm.
So you just picked a random guy out of history?
I guess.
Okay. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
So addicted to arsenic. Is arsenic not, poisonous? Is that arsenic not what you take in, suicide pills and stuff?
I thought so.
So you're addicted to...
arsenic. He was addicted to arsenic and strychnine? It was 2 different drugs that he was, highly addicted to. And then his wife killed him. Well, allegedly. Yeah, and then there's tons of other ones. Nikolai Vasiliev, Frederick Bailey Deeming. I don't know who a lot of these people are. They thought that Prince Albert Victor guy, he's son of King Edward VII and grandson of Queen Victoria.
Okay.
H.H. Holmes, which was one of America's first serial killers. They thought that could have been him. Lizzie Williams was a suspect for the Jill the Ripper.
Who's Lizzie? Oh, wait. Who's Lizzie Williams?
They just thought that was one of the females that they said could have been the Jill the Ripper person. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm not surprised it didn't go unsolved. I'm sure there's thousands of murders, probably more murders unsolved and solved back then, at least properly. But kind of surprised that it wasn't no.
It just surprised me that people still care this much. To try to find... If it was he killed 150 people... I mean, I understand that 5 people is still a lot, but for the fact that it's how many years later, and they're still trying to find who killed these 5 women, that blows my mind. That there's so much time and effort going into figuring out. And
I'm sure I read somewhere that was at the time, a lot of the people in London didn't have credentials, didn't have papers, because a lot of them had just sort of moved in. They were foreigners that came in, if it was travellers, if it was just European sort of refugees and stuff. So a lot of them weren't even citizens or weren't even people who had passed, nobody knew who they were, regardless, even if they might have names. They're all just sort of Christian names or something fancy.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
So there's a few more facts that I have about him.
Alright, drop some more facts on him.
Top 10 facts were the old number 10 would be the canonical 5. And that's just that he killed, the 5 that are definitely connected.
What does canonical mean?
I'm not sure.
Good neat word to say, canonical.
Canonical. Yeah. I don't know what it means. Google it.
Google canonical.
I'm thinking it probably means a group.
According to or ordered by canon law. Included in the list of sacred books officially accepted as genuine. Well, I guess that sort of makes sense.
Yeah.
Or related to the cathedral chapter or member of it. Prescribed officially dressed of the cleric. No. Okay. I'm assuming it just means that it's the religious
it's a group, yeah.
Good word.
The fact that it was just an abrupt cease of the murders, that's something that...
Well, that's why that last guy, because he was killed in 1918 or
1889.
Yeah. That's probably the best thing for him. Same with Churchill, if they need to get... Well, no, it doesn't make any sense. Why 5? Because there's 5 men, doesn't make sense. Okay.
Yeah, unless, well, with Churchill, those were the 5 that were blackmailing him. So
5 were blackmailing, okay.
That could be it too. Number 8 is the mystery suspects. How many there are? Only 3 were under suspicion at the time. That's crazy too. There's like hundreds of theories now, but only 3 were under suspicion at the time. And those were Aaron Kosaniski, Montague, John Druitt, and Michael Ostrog.
Wow. Names. You don't sound like British names.
No. 7 was he took away the identity of his victims. So psychologists now assume that he hated women and he thought they were just very lowly and worthless, and so he destroyed their faces to distorted their faces to destroy their identities.
Okay.
So
but it's like, okay, so when he cut their throats, he disemboweled them, but then he also messed up. Mm-hmm. Okay, that would also work with like the woman and there's been midwife, I guess. Mm-hmm. She feels like she's been like anti not having sex before marriage and all that sort of stuff, and hates his women, so that kind of makes sense as well.
Number 6, he's got a pseudonym from a letter, and we don't know if that letter was from him or not, but it stuck. Oh yes, and now he's Jack the Ripper. He may have been a medical professional, so he had precision of thawing and removing the organs, and like he clearly had a medical background, which is a little scary.
Hardly anybody knows how to do that nowadays. Back then, it must be even fewer people.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you could have narrowed down the amount of people really quickly. Mm-hmm.
They think that he was just a normal guy. So in 2006, this was weird too, because I don't know why they're doing it in 2006. The modern investigators put a tentative appearance together of like what he would look like, and he was 25 to 35 years old, medium height, stocky build, with a mustache. Huh. So just like
that's
most of the guys at the time.
Anybody, exactly. Most of the guys at the time, because they're all relatively short, stocky.
He killed during the early morning hours and on weekends. So he was likely single because he just was out during the night killing prostitutes. So, I mean, if he was married or something, there'd be suspicion. And then it seemed like he had regular weekday employment because he only killed during those certain hours. Mm-hmm. He was never identified, and there's been more than 120 years of mystery. That led to a lot of pop culture.
Yeah?
Yes. He is in so much pop culture.
Oh, wow. Okay, I can see you've got a big long list. As I said, I can remember him from Last Action Hero. Let me hear some of the pop culture.
Alright, so in literature, there's been both fiction and nonfiction about him. The nonfiction is more the theories. The fiction, it's just like a good story. Yeah. Some of the most recent ones were Anatomy of Evil in 2015, The Cutthroat in 2017. I've never heard of any of these books. No. But there's a lot. Theater, there's a lot of musicals about him. 2 British musicals, Ripper and Jack the Ripper. There's a rock opera about him. Like, there's so much.
You're right, that seems too much for what he was.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Like,
too much, way too much.
Yes. I agree. Strange. There's just so much mystery behind him that everybody's so obsessed with. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, I chose him, so.
Yeah, well, yeah.
For film, there's so many movies. Pandora's Box, Jack the Ripper, Terror in the Wax Museum. The Lodger was made into 5 films. One of them was a Hitchcock film. Oh, A Study in Terror and Murder by Decree. He was pit against. It was Sherlock Holmes against Jack the Ripper.
Okay.
Night After Night After Night, The Ripper of Notre Dame, Jill the Ripper, and that was just some of them. In television, there's multiple episodes where he comes up. The Twilight Zone had an episode. Star Trek had an episode. The Sixth Sense had an episode. Grimm had an episode. Sleepy Hollow had an episode. Like. Oh
wow! Okay, yeah.
Because he can just be used in any of these series. Art was really only Walter Sickert, the one that he's a suspect. He's in comics.
I suppose, yeah, why not? Put some notorious in a comic.
He was in a Marvel comic, Master of Kung Fu. Marvel's Master of Kung Fu featured a story involving Jack the Ripper. Gotham by Gaslight featured a Victorian-era Batman against Jack the Ripper.
I've heard of that comic.
Yeah. He was also featured in Doom Patrol, Wonder Woman, The Justice League story. in an Italian comic book.
Damn.
Yeah. Music was really weird. There's
music.
Yeah,
I suppose it just used them as a wine, I guess.
Link Ray's Jack the Ripper begins with an evil laugh and women screaming, and that's back to him.
Dark.
Yeah.
When was that?
1959.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Seems to have been weird for then.
Yeah. And then it was used again in 1963, and then covered by the White Stripes, the Horrors, the Black Lips, the Sharks, and Jack. There's a band called Jack and the Rippers.
Of course.
Metal bands tend to be the ones to use him as inspiration.
Yeah, sounds right.
And then some of the songs inspired by Jack were Bob Dylan wrote a song that was inspired by Jack the Ripper.
Sounds interesting because Bob Dylan. But yeah, Bob Dylan's American, so I don't know why someone who's only killed maybe 5 people has made it a worldwide renowned.
I don't
It doesn't
know.
make any sense.
Yeah.
But I guess, as you said, it's the mystery. Unless it's really gruesome or really mysterious, and this is a bit of both, to be fair.
Yeah.
And because in the sort of Victorian age, everyone's a bit like, ooh, fancy.
Yeah. And then some video games: Master of Darkness, Waxwork, Shadow Men, Metal Gear Solid, Assassin's Creed 3, and Assassin's Creed Syndicate. All had Jack the Ripper.
Assassin's Creed were based around those times, so I
Yeah.
guess that makes sense. I don't remember him being Metal Gear Solid.
He was, there was a character called Raiden,
Okay, yeah.
and that
he
was
the
based
second.
off of Jack the Ripper.
Oh, really? Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And then in sports,
Oh, wow.
there's an independent minor league baseball team in London, Ontario, who are the London Rippers, with their logo is a Jack Diamond.
Okay.
So they're based off of Jack the Ripper.
They're a baseball team based off a killer. Okay.
So he is everywhere.
It's almost like the mystery and the kind of stuff that's been created around him is so much more interesting than the actual story.
Yes.
You know, this guy's killed 5 women in the same manner. It's nothing that crazy, I guess.
Yeah,
And that happened all in over 1 year.
Yeah. 1 year, 5 people, and 120 years later, we're still obsessed with it.
Mm-hmm. That's crazy.
So there's Jack the Ripper.
So he's one of the most famous ones, one most of us have probably heard of, don't know much about. And out of the 11 people, all the 6 ladies he killed, or maybe thought to have killed, they just been killed other ways, or like were they all stabbed? Or do we know?
The other 6?
Yeah.
I don't know. They didn't really say.
They were.
I think they were also prostitutes.
You could probably find more ways of determining those killers, because if they're strangled, you get like hand size, or if they're sort of beaten with other objects, is more likely to find them. And
yeah, and it probably didn't help. I mean, if they're seeing this one, if other people see this one guy killing 5 people, there could be copycat killers too.
Yeah, well, that's something that's quite interesting. That comes up in a lot of the serial killer cases. People sort of fake pretending to be these people. Not having things like Zodiac killing, another one of the sort of infamous ones that's unsolved. So many people pretending to be you never quite figure out who's who, and then you get in case people who get convicted as being killers start confessing to other random killings, which could not have been them, which is weird.
Yeah.
All right, so that was your one. My one's slightly different because mine is a solved one. It's much more recent, and he's killed a lot more people. Yeah. Only not many of them 100% proven, but quite a lot of them. So this is a guy named Tommy Lynn Sells, and he was born in 1964, so pretty recent, and he only actually died in 2014, so only 3 years ago he was eventually killed, or executed as it was. So Tommy Lynn Sells, he was known as the Coast to Coast Killer. We'll talk about the reason why later. And Coast to Coast Killer is what he's known as. Born on June 28th, 1964 in California. And he was actually a twin. Him and his sister. He was called Tommy Lynn. His sister was called Tammy Jean. So you can kind of tell this type of family already by the names. Not that I want to be that selective, but he was active in his killing between 1980 and literally December the 31st, 1999. So last day of the millennium. He was captured on the 2nd of January 2000, and he has only actually been convicted of killing one person. He only convicted of killing one person, but he's suspected of around 22 others, but he's claiming over 70. So there's a lot we just don't know. He's killed a lot of people. Some in brutal manner, some really simple. But So, as I said, he was born early 60s, to a lady called Nina Sells, single mother, already had 3 children, so him and his sister are about. They were born, as I said, in California, but moved out to Missouri. Is that right? Yeah, Missouri. Moved out to Missouri, where him and his sister contracted meningitis. Meningitis at like 18 months old is pretty brutal, so his sister actually died, unfortunately, just leaving him with his 3 siblings and his mum. Soon after his sister passed away, he was given to his auntie to live for a while, so she also lived in Missouri, but I think obviously the mum probably couldn't handle 4 children, etc. So he lived with his auntie for the next 5 years. But then at the age of 5, his mum came back and reclaimed him, as his auntie wanted to adopt him. And I don't know why, for some reason. Maybe she was getting child support. I don't know, something like that. So she took him back. From then on, his life got pretty miserable. So he was a pretty troubled child, neglected by his parents and often left to just fend, well, his parent left to fend for himself. And he rarely attended school, and said to be even started drinking at the age of 7, which I think is crazy, because I didn't even know what alcohol was at 7.
Yeah.
Like, I know you just imitate what you see. Your parents are probably big drinkers and stuff, but at 7,
yeah, that's.
I don't even want to drink alcohol. It tastes minging. I still think it tastes minging. I'm a good 20 years older than that. Why would I want to be drinking at 7? I wanted maybe Coca-Cola, but milk, chocolate milk. Anything, it baffles me. Anyone would be drinking at 7. Crazy. Maybe like a sip of your dad's beer if you're weird. But yeah, so this is up to the age of 7. He had a pretty brutal time. This is just setting the guidelines of when he's starting, where it all comes from. Because a lot of people say, especially killers these days, when they sort of go into the psychological thing, it's all childhood trauma has caused this, and an expert really kind of gets into that. So at about the age of 7 or 8, he started hanging out with a man from a nearby town called Willis Clark. Now, this man bought him presents, took him out, the usual sort of grooming that you'd see. And totally knowing from his mother was aware of this happening, he ended up getting molested by this man. Now, this man was later convicted of molesting young boys, and Tommy Lynn was one of the many that apparently has happened to. So that alone kind of started off this mental breakdown, I'm sure. And since Tommy Lynn has mentioned that every time he killed someone, this molestation ran through his mind. Now, you're never quite sure if that actually is the truth, or if that's just sort of what they use because you know that sort of, I got claimed for some reason. Am I just evil, or was it because I was molested? Not saying it wasn't, but yeah, so that happened quite often at the guy's house. He stayed overnights and things like this happened, which is kind of grim. Deeply scarred Tommy for the rest of his life, which, I can understand. Between the ages of 10 and 13, he was in trouble a lot. He basically dropped out of school, started smoking pot at 10. Again, another thing, it just baffles me. I know that happens even now, but I suppose, you do what you see, but that doesn't make any sense to me. And then the last straw for at least his mother dealing with him at this point, one night he climbed into his bed with his grandmother naked, which if at the age of like 10 or whatever, or maybe it was 13 by this time, it doesn't seem that. In my head, it's weird, but it doesn't suggest, what I've read doesn't suggest that he wanted anything. But that apparently that was the last straw, and his mother and his siblings left the day after, leaving him with his grandmother and just no forwarding address. So age of 13, he's left alone, which again is pretty brutal. You don't quite know what to do. We're not even started the killings yet, and it's already upsetting. Alright, after that he was homeless and he started to hitchhike over the country. And during this time he committed a whole bunch of sort of standard crimes, stealings, thefts, just sort of the basic low-level things. With his mother being gone, this is when he first committed his first sort of aggressive crime, where he beat a woman unconscious, or pistol whipped a woman unconscious. This is him at the age of 15. She didn't die, but that was apparently his first crime. He was never convicted or charged with it, so it may have been just one he claimed once he was caught, but that was his first thing at 15 years old. Following that, he hitchhiked about the country a bit more, just doing odd jobs and stealing to kind of get by, make some money and survive. He claims his first killing was he broke into a man's house and he found a man performing fellatio on a young boy, and therefore he killed him. It doesn't say how he killed him. It was, again, a claim, and it was never proven, but some believe that this was just what he used to dream of doing to the guy that used to molest him. So this is not confirmed, but if it was his first killing at 15. to a pedo, so not too worried about that one.
Yeah.
Then his next killing, or next one he claimed, was still at 15, so this is 1979. He shot and killed a man called John Cade Sr., who was proven to have been killed, but it's not proven to be him. When John Cade Sr. caught Tommy burglarizing his house. Pretty simple, I think it was just a beating. Oh, that's what Tommy claimed. So this is his second proven killing again at 15, which is kind of weird. 15 again. I don't understand the age of these things. I think people obviously grow up a lot quicker. Then Tommy, 1981, at 17 years old, he moved back from his family. He moved to Little Rock, Arkansas. His family had moved there at some point. This didn't last very long though. Within the same year, he got into the shower naked of his mum and attempted to have sex with her. His mother neither. So then, following that, his mother told him to leave. So he had to leave. Kind of brutal again. Back on the road, he worked alongside a carnival. So just sort of, it was easy to tour about and not be sort of registered or known anywhere. And this is where he confessed to killing 2 people in Arkansas before moving to St. Louis in 1983. So he's still pretty young. He's still only 16, 17 at this point. One of them was being confirmed, a man called Hal Aitken. And this was effectively would be his 4th killing and only 19 years old. So again, still pretty brutal. Doesn't mention too much about this one. They get a lot more sort of detailed soon. In May 1984, at the age of 20, he was convicted for theft and was sentenced to 2 years in prison, but was out a year later. So by February 1985, he was released. Following being released, he joined another county fair where he met Ina Cordet, I think, and her 4-year-old son. Ina was 35 and she was single, and he killed them both. This was his 5th and 6th killing. Yeah, he killed a kid. So initially, this is where we start to get a little bit more detailed killings. So Ina invited him to her house where I think they were just sort of getting along. He was a young guy, she was a bit older, maybe single mum, so kind of being nice to each other. And then he caught her going through his stuff, basically his rucksack of his travelling gear. So he beat her to death with a baseball bat. And because the son was there, the boy named Rory, he was a witness, so he was beaten too. The bodies were found 3 days later. He was never convicted, but they believe that the detail that he described the murders, etc., he is strongly believed to have been the killer. But, as I said, unproven, which is kind of crazy. So, 1984, 20 years old, he went back to jail in another part of America, I'm not quite sure where, for an accidental drunk driving incident. And he was there for 2 years. He served a whole sentence for 2 years until 1986 when he was released. Once out, apparently pretty soon after he was out, he shot a stranger in self-defense, he claims, stole their car, and then drove to Texas, where he's... So this is, 22. He's killed I think it's about 7 people by now.
Yeah.
Most of them not been proven. Here, he spent a bit of time living before he actually OD'd on heroin. So he went to Texas, then he was hospitalised after a while for overdosing on heroin. But once out of hospital, he stole another car and then drove to Fremont, California. It should be mentioned that during his time in prison, he was gone through some psychological kind of assessments and other sort of doctor tests, and it was proven that he was addicted to alcohol, to drugs, etc. He was diagnosed with personality disorder, antisocial behaviour, borderline schizophrenia, substance abuse such as opiates, cannabis, amphetamines, alcohol dependency, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder, and psychosis. So he was pretty messed up. He was released after this. This is crazy. Yeah, so he went to jail a number of times after this, but I'll get to them in a moment. So after he got out, he stole the car, went to Texas, then he went to Fremont. In Fremont, he has been unconfirmed killings, but he claims to have killed another 2 ladies. Claimed to killing 2 people, a girl named Jennifer, who was 20, and that'd be his 8th killing. And then Michelle Xavier, who was 19, she was found with her throat cut. Again, those 2 are unconfirmed, but he claims them, and again, that'd be 8 and 9. Still the age of 22. In 1987, in October, in Winnemucca, Nevada. He was living with a lady called Stephanie Sturth. During this time, or near the end of their time, in the end of October, he drugged her with some LSD, strangled her, and then disposed of her body in a very sort of Hollywood style where he tied concrete bricks to her feet, took her out to a desert, and dropped her into a hot spring where she fell to the bottom. This again was never confirmed, but he claims it in high detail, and she did go missing around this time. Soon after this, early November, he left Nevada and headed east, where he confessed to killing another lady called Suzanne Kroggs in New York, who was 27. Again, this is unconfirmed, so it's another one. This is, on my count, 11. Mm-hmm. Then we come to one of his most brutal ones, from what I've read. So this is in Illinois. He started travelling back west again, and he was hitchhiking along the road, and a nice young man, middle-aged man called Keith Dardine, came upon him and tried to befriend him and bring him home, give him a hot meal and some food. Mm-hmm. During the time he spent at Dardine's house, he shot Dardine dead and then mutilated his penis, very similar to that of Ramsay Bolton from Game of Thrones, which I know you haven't seen, but if you do see it, you will understand that reference. And then following that, he murdered Dardine's 3-year-old son, Pete, bludgeoning him to death with a hammer. Not only that, he then took his rage onto Dardine's wife, who was pregnant at the time, highly pregnant at the time. He attempted to rape her, which induced labour, and she actually gave birth to their daughter at that point, who was then, at that point he beat both the wife, Elaine, and the unnamed daughter to death with a bat. He then inserted the bat into Elaine, I'll say, and then tucked the children and the mother into bed and left. This crime was unsolved for 12 years until he was caught and finally confessed to the murder. So this wasn't actually known about that he did this until the late 90s. Again, he's confessed to it. We don't 100% know if he did it or not, but again, with the information he's provided, it's pretty brutal. But that's, out of the ones I read, that's pretty grim. And it doesn't seem to fit his MO. Like, it does and it doesn't, I don't know. Mm-hmm. So basically, for 20 years, he travelled about America. You can see coast to coast, from New York to California, everywhere in between, killing helpless, unknowing, unwilling people that try to help him. We've got a bunch of other killings. I'm going to list them off very quickly for you. But this is a timeline between 1988 to 2000 of these other claimed killings. Not all proven, as I mentioned, but 1988 in Lawrence, Massachusetts, a lady called Melissa Tremblay, age 11, was raped and murdered. He's taken claim to that. Between January and December 1988, an unknown woman and her 3-year-old son were killed by him in Salt Lake City. He disposed of their bodies in the Snake River in Idaho, apparently. In December 1988, Tucson, Arizona, he killed Ken Lawton over a bad drug deal. And January 27th, 1989, he killed an unnamed prostitute and disposed of her body in Truckee, California. An unidentified woman's body was found at that location where he described, so they're pretty convinced of that one. In April 1989, Rosenberg, Oregon, he killed an unnamed woman in her 20s. May the 9th, all the ones that are unnamed are people he's claimed, but not always necessarily found. Again in Rosenberg, he killed another female hitchhiker. On the same day, May the 9th, 1989, he was arrested by his employer for stealing, and he spent 15 days in jail. So he claims to have killed this woman, gone to work, and then arrested for stealing from his employer, then went to jail. He was arrested again in August 1989 in Arkansas for theft charges. He was then released at some point in 1989 October. He was charged with public drunkenness and put into detox. But by November, he was out again, charged with more public drunkenness. This is also giving you an idea of where about the country he was, because that was California, then it was Nevada. In Arizona, he was hospitalized for drug overdose. We talked about that. He was then back in Nevada when he was held for cocaine charges. In 1990, in Rawlins, Wyoming, he was arrested for theft. And then in Marianna, Florida, he apparently bludgeoned to death Teresa Hall, 28, and her 5-year-old daughter. That was in 1991. Between March and April 1992, he was arrested for public drunkenness again. You wonder, surely he must have a massive a record. He surely could put some of these.
That's what I was thinking.
And what's interesting is, like, a lot of the times he was arrested in some place and then made a killing somewhere else and then moved somewhere else. The timeline doesn't really fit up. But he must have been traveling a lot.
Yeah.
In 1992, he was imprisoned for raping and beating and stabbing a 20-year-old woman who did survive, and he was sentenced for 2 10-year prison terms. But he was released 5 years later in May 1997. That was a time when he was diagnosed being bipolar, and you wonder, how can you let someone out after 5 years?
It
doesn't make any sense. Going back to some more deaths, killings, in 1977. Oh no, these must be written up wrong. 1997, in Illinois, he attacked and stabbed Julie Ray Harper and her son, 10-year-old son, Joel Kirkpatrick, to death. In Springfield, Missouri, he kidnapped, raped and strangled to death a 13-year-old Stephanie Mahoney. In 1998, in Texas, he married a woman of 3 children, separated for 2 weeks in 1999. Sorry, this is just a timeline thing. He married a woman of 3 children, separated for 2 weeks, and then again later in March 1999. So he was married for less than half a year. In March that same year, at the end of March 1999, he raped and murdered Debbie Harris, and 28, and her 8-year-old daughter, Ambria Harris. On 18th of April 1999, in San Antonio, Texas, he raped, strangled, and a 9-year-old Mary Perez. In May 13th night, he obviously it seems like he's getting worse and worse, but maybe it's just more and more of it's getting recorded. May 13th, 1999, in Lexington, Kentucky, he raped and murdered 13-year-old Haley McCone and then sold her bicycle for $20. Don't know why that was added there, but he was jailed in June 1999, but then released by July, where he shot dead a 14-year-old Bobby Lynn Wofford in Oklahoma. And then finally, his final murder outside, I don't know if he'd murdered anybody in the jail. And December 31st, 1999, had his final murder of 13-year-old Kayla Harris, an attempted murder of 10-year-old Crystal Searles. So this happened end of December, where he, going for his final crime, he slit the throat of 13-year-old Kayla Katie Harris, who later died, and 10-year-old Crystal Searles. Searles survived by receiving help from neighbours, and she managed to give a sketch of the cells, Tommy, who was captured pretty quick after with the victim's description, and that's when he was caught. He's been brutal. So since then, he spent 5 years in prison. During this time, lots of sort of documentaries and doctors kind of spoke to him. He claims to have killed more than 70 people. Again, police are still trying to connect a lot of these murders to him. We're not sure whether he's just working the system and confessing to murders or if it's true or not. He was housed in death row 2000, in late 2000, in Texas, and he was sentenced to death on the January 3rd, 2014, and executed in Texas. His final statement, asked if he wanted a final statement, he said no. By lethal injection, the pentobarbital. I don't know. Yeah. It was administered, a couple of deep breaths, went to sleep, and then died. And was pronounced dead 30 minutes later. So yeah. So this is someone who you probably haven't heard of, but seems to have killed a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
One thing he did do, which again, so he's in prison, and this journalist comes and speaks, or sends him letters back and forward, and somehow she's connected him to a death that's happened. So, 2002, Diane Fanning, who was a writer, corresponded with Sells when he was on death row in Texas, and somehow during the letters, Sells confessed to murdering a 10-year-old Joel Kirkpatrick. Joel's mother, Julia Harper, had previously been found guilty of this murder and was in prison for it. So with Fell's confession, the lady, Julia Harper, managed to get a retrial, and she was acquitted for the murder, so she was actually set free. Now, apparently, Tommy had a disagreement with this lady in a convenience store, followed her home, and that's when he killed her son. That seems fishy as shit to me. Like, it's almost like they've conspired together to get this guy to agree to it to get her free. So I don't like that, but potentially he saved an innocent woman, but that's not really proven.
Potentially.
But yeah, this guy was pretty brutal. Yeah. Now imagine these are just like short parts of what he's claimed and not much detail, but that's it's a lot of brutalness. I think if it had gone unsolved, he's killed 10 times as many people, if not more than that, 20 times, claiming to have the Jack Ripper.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Like,
don't know his name. I didn't know it until I looked it up. And because it went solved, nobody cares. You know, it's like, justice, it's fine. But really, seems mental.
Yeah, you know? It's just not a big deal because I don't know, and it also scares me that like he went unnoticed for how many times was he in and out of jail?
Well, that's multiple. It was about 5 or 6, if not more, convictions.
And nobody was like, this guy's probably doesn't need to be in the out in public. Mm-hmm. Let's keep him inside somewhere. Like,
it seems way too many arrests.
Yeah.
And this isn't in the 1880s. This is now. This is literally isn't. Fair enough. 40 years ago, when he made his first killing, the technology was worse, but
still,
damn, that's a lot of death.
Yeah. And so in the beginning, the beginning ones that you were talking about, they kind of made sense because it was like he claimed to kill a guy that was molesting a kid and things like that. But then he started not caring that, because at first it kind of reminded me of Dexter. He's just he had a really messed up childhood and he is taking it out on these people who he deemed are not worthy people.
Yeah.
But then it became killing kids and killing.
Well, that's the sort of span I didn't quite get, because it did seem very much rage-induced. It was, someone's doing something wrong to him. Mm-hmm. But then it went on to children too easily. The raping and murder of these little girls that he claims to have, in the late 90s.
Yeah.
It's I guess this is just maybe natural progression when you're addicted to heroin, you've got all these disorders. But, and that's grim.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And he's not even, as I said, not knowing who he is seems mental.
And it just creeps me out, how many other people like this are there?
Yeah, well, that's it. As in molestation of children is pretty common, even now. Mm-hmm. I think you'll probably be surprised about how many make headlines. Maybe that's another thing. The police probably keep a lot of these people under wraps because they don't want the hysteria and the sort of publicity given to them.
And the copycats.
Yeah. Not that this guy had anything to copy other than just killing everybody that came in his way, essentially.
Yeah.
It's strange. It was only 10 years ago, less than 10 years ago. No, just over 10 years ago he was killed.
Yeah. 10 years, no, it was
2004 when he was killed. So
it was 14.
13 years ago.
I thought it was 2014. Was it 2004?
Oh, did I get the numbers wrong? I said 14 earlier, didn't I? No, you're right, yeah. Sorry, 2014 was when he killed, so it was only 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Not even 3, just over 3 years ago. That's mental.
Yeah.
So wow, he was in prison for 14 years. Yeah. He was in death row for 14 years.
Yep.
Death row's a long one. I wonder if that's worth. Is it worth being told you're going to die and die in the next week, or be on death row for 14 years? What do you think's worse?
I don't know. I feel like if you're on death row for 14 years, you have the chance of getting off. I
guess you could always appeal, but if you confess that many murders, he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah, but then with the political changes, they may make death row not.
That's true, actually. Yeah, because that could happen pretty soon.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. Yeah. I assume it's still a thing in Texas, obviously.
I have no idea.
Since that's where he was killed. But now I wonder if, do you think if he was caught somewhere else, he would just still be in prison? What happens if you kill someone in Texas, and you kill someone in Nevada, and you kill someone in New York, and you're proven for all these ones? Is the one that you're captured in, the one you get processed in? The guy would have just moved this guy to Texas to make sure.
Yeah. Are all serial killers psychopaths?
Depends. What's the definition of psychopath?
So look it up, and so there's psychopaths and sociopaths.
Yeah, sociopath's the one that doesn't understand empathy, right?
So both lack empathy.
Oh, okay.
So psychopaths don't have a conscience. They don't feel bad for anything they do.
Okay.
Sociopaths have a conscience, but it's weak. So they know it's wrong, they know what they're doing is wrong, but they don't really care that much.
Okay.
So psychopaths just like, they just do.
Yeah.
Both lack empathy. Yeah.
And don't get, I suppose the sociopath probably doesn't understand social interaction, so they don't quite get that idea of society, I guess.
Yeah.
Are they all I think you have to have a lack of empathy
mm-hmm.
to be able to cause that many murders.
Mm-hmm.
Unless for some reason you feel what you're doing is right, which
mm-hmm.
we do have empathy, but you don't, you know what I mean? It's like, you don't have to be a psychopath or sociopath to be a serial killer, because you could end up just doing it because you think it's the right thing to do.
Like Dexter.
Yeah, like Dexter. Well, because he had empathy because he cared, didn't he? So he wasn't a psychopath or sociopath. He lacked a little bit of, I don't know.
Yeah.
What was Dexter?
So, I don't know.
Because they made it all out like he cared so much about people he loved and didn't want to hurt them.
But did he actually care, or was that just part of his code?
Oh yeah, I forgot about his code. No, because he definitely cared about his sister, because he felt bad and he felt remorse when his sister found him.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. I only got that far. After that season, I stopped watching because it got bad.
It was like the last season.
Because he cared, and whatever season it was. But no, because he cared for his wife, who got killed, Trinity killed, and then his baby. And he didn't want his baby to grow up like him. But then was that empathy of, I don't know. I would say you don't have to be, but it helps. Okay.
So, I read that, like, usually serial killers in, like, movies and TV shows are portrayed as, like, insane. Mm-hmm. So they don't have to have, like, psychosis or insanity. But usually they are, and like they exhibit antisocial personality disorders, which could be sociopath or psychopath. Because...
Yeah, I think to think you're insane is clearly wrong. You have to have, especially to kill a certain amount of people, you have to have some sort of smarts about you to get away with it, especially for long periods of time if you open with them. But
I think insanity is what most usually claim, right?
Yeah.
Because
However, I don't think Jack the Ripper was sociopath, psychopath, or insane. I think he believed in what he was doing was right. Mm-hmm. Or she. And I think that's why they had the very straightforward MO, and he was never caught. She was never caught. Mm-hmm. I mean, because he would have continued to do it. Unless he did die, he would have continued to do it. But I think he just, I don't know, thought that was the right thing to do. Maybe afterwards he was convinced otherwise, he felt guilt, so he stopped doing it. So that's why he wasn't one of those. But I guess we'll never know. Yeah.
I think your guy, even just with like what they proved when he was in jail, definitely fits there was something going on.
I think even if he started to confess to all those, one of two things: it'd either be because he felt guilty for the ones he did do, so he wanted to just sort of take claim to everything, just to make him, I don't know, make him feel better, I guess, or something, or just sort of like, okay, I'm a monster, I must do this, or he was a complete psychopath and definitely insane. Yeah, but not insane enough.
Or it could be that he wanted the fame.
Yeah,
so
that's
he
true.
Claimed him.
But it didn't work because we don't know who you are. You're funny. You know, he's probably one of the larger, because I looked at some other serial killers, and we might talk about it some other time. Mm-hmm. But some of them, like, it was only killed 4 people. I don't say only killed 4 people, but 4 people doesn't seem that much in the grand scheme of serial killers, really.
Yeah, there's so many too. I found a list of top 20.
Okay, let's see a list of top 20. Alright, let's see what's on your list.
Zodiac Killer.
Okay, so he's like one of the most famous ones. He had that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal a while back. Mm-hmm.
His last letter said me 37, SFPD 0. Yeah, so he claimed 37.
Yeah.
Donald Henry Gaskins, the Hitchhiker's Killer. He claimed to kill 80 to 90 people.
Okay, that's quite a lot. These aren't necessarily, these are claimed, these aren't necessarily proven, right?
No. Okay. The Human Dracula.
Yeah, I don't think he killed that many though. I think he was one that killed like 4 girls.
Yeah, abducted little girls and killed them. Ted Bundy.
Oh yeah, he's quite a famous one.
Confessed to killing 30 women. Decapitated at least 12 victims. Jack the Ripper, which he's 5. Mm-hmm. 5. Louis Garavito, the Beast.
Beast.
He confessed to the torture, rape, and murder of 147 boys. Wow. But the number's believed to be over 300.
Wow, what was his name?
Luis Garavito.
All right. He's
So-
Colombian, right?
He was found guilty on 139 accounts, which would amount to 1,853 years in prison.
Wow. Bet he didn't even serve that.
No.
What did he serve?
Oh,
it says here he served 22 years.
Yeah.
God.
And was released earlier for cooperation and good behavior. Or he may be released earlier,
Oh, so he's still in prison?
I guess.
Oh, yeah. Early 90s he was active. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just looking through this list that I've got here, and a shit ton of them come from the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if that's just because they were the ones that have been caught, or if there's something wrong with people in the United States. But,
Maybe.
wow, there seems to be a lot. Not as many from the UK as I thought there'd be. A couple, but not many.
This one's called John George High, acid bath murderer.
Eee.
Yeah. He was convicted for killing 6 people, although he claimed 9. He would dissolve their bodies in sulfuric acid, then forge papers to sell their possessions and collect their life savings.
Yeah, there you go, money, that makes sense. I think we've got one of the highest UK ones here, Harold Shipman, who was convicted of killing 15 people but a possible 250 victims.
Oh my God.
Oh, this is because he was a doctor who prescribed them the wrong type of, who injected them with the wrong type of medicine.
Yeah.
This was done recently, actually, 1998, he was stopped being active.
Yeah. Eileen Wuornos, Monster.
Oh,
Have you
yes.
seen that movie?
I've not seen that movie, but I've seen
Pretty good.
Charlize Theron's makeup,
Mm-hmm.
which looks almost exactly like the woman. It's crazy.
Yeah.
That was super good makeup. She
Yeah.
won an Oscar for that, right?
Academy Award.
Academy.
Yeah.
That same thing, right?
I guess. I don't know.
Yes.
She killed 7 men in Florida.
She was like the motel killer type thing, was she not? I don't know.
I don't know. Jeffrey Dahmer.
Heard of that one. Not much about it.
Dismembered 17 men and boys.
Wow. Dismembered. I wonder if it's the same way as the other friend here.
So there's a lot of
There's a
people.
lot. Well, that's grim.
Yep.
That's slightly different to the MCU from last week. And space. But they wanted it. Hope you enjoyed the death and destruction of that. We may come to doing serial kills again sometime. Who knows? As I've just said, there's quite a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else? What we do next week? Don't know yet.
I don't know yet.
Alright, we'll figure out something else. If you have anything, please contact us. Still nobody's done it, even after my plea in that last one when I said do it, even if you just listen to it. So Instagram and Twitter, the MumbleCast, and then have we got anything else? We do have a website, but I don't think we have an email for that yet, do we?
No, I think so, not yet. So
Okay, contact one of them.
Instagram, Twitter.
We have
Go.
no followers on Twitter, apart from 2, me and Kayla, and that's it. So that's depressing. Come on.
Yep.
We don't spend time doing this for nothing. Alright then. Bye.
Bye. That was very interesting.